in X, and we're just doing our weekly team training at Innovo. And so here we're just going to keep working through training our team and potentially future team members on some of our process and how we do things. We are uh, we're a product agency building a number of different products for ourselves, and then also building products for our for clients. And so we're leveraging the shape up process. We're highly leveraging like AI, of course. And so we're just going to teach you kind of what we're doing in real time, and you guys can kind of follow along. If you have questions, you can always drop comments. And then we typically do this for like 20 minutes, and then we'll jump into some team chat after this. So um, today I want to just talk a little bit about um, this journey of kind of what I'm calling human deep learning in the age of AI. And so we now have information, access to all information, one prompt away. We essentially have like AI is the PhD, has a PhD in everything. It just needs to be told kind of how to, um, what to do, and you kind of need to give it some guidance. So the skill here is always like every time AI comes in at one level, like you have to kind of in your mind, you're now getting a promotion. So you went from developer to senior developer. If you're like, it starts to do more of that job. Now you're like helping more with like product management or the business side or whatever. Like you're kind of working your way up the ladder and having AI kind of fill in behind you. So no matter what your task is, even if it's administrative, like take yourself as like, okay, I'm an operations person now, and I'm going to delegate all these things to AI to help me with my job. So, in that age, when all the information is right here at our fingertips, how do we actually learn things? Because now it's like, well, do we need to learn? And I've been going on this very interesting but parallel journey, and in no way like does this sort of connect with business, or I didn't do this because of business, but I set out in 2021 or 2022 to go get my pilot's license. And so I've always loved flying, I've always loved aviation. um, and our daughter was born in April, and I realized I was like, man, we are, we're only ever losing margin in your life. So like you get a girlfriend, you get married, you have kids, like your margin just shrinks down and down and down until you kind of look back and like when we were had our first kid, we're like, man, what did we do with our time? Like before we had kids, like we just had all this free time. We had literally, endless amount of margin. Then we have a second kid, and it kind of like builds. So you kind of lose margin as you go. So I kind of saw that trajectory, and I was like, I'm either going to become a pilot now and put the time in now and do this, or it's probably going to be when like our girls are 18. And I was like, why would you wait all that time? And I also like to think about things. This is sort of like a tangent, but also somewhat related. Like finding topics and interests and hobbies um, is extremely powerful because one, it gives you time to reset all the, and if you're trying to build things like on a computer, try not to make your hobby building slightly different things on a computer. If you know what I'm saying, like do something a little bit different, kind of stretches you. And so it's healthy for a number of reasons. But I didn't have a hobby for a while, and I that was very unhealthy. And I was like, I don't need a hobby. Work's my hobby, and that was kind of my line. And I kind of wore it like a badge of honor, but that's not a smart thing to do. So you need a hobby, something different. And I would also advise you, like sometimes in business, there's like, oh, I'm going to become a pilot. It's going to teach me how to like run a business better, right? Like, no, that's putting like stupid pressure on yourself. Like, just enjoy it for what it is. I'm not trying to like, however, in this case, there are some similarities I'm going to like point out today that I have learned in that process. So one, like this is a tangent, but have a hobby for sure. That's something that's healthy to do, but also enjoy it. And also, like when you're picking something, I always kind of ask myself, like, what's the thing I would be doing? What's the hobby I would have? Let's say if I had like sold my business, I made tens of millions of dollars in the bank, and I'm just kind of like sitting on a Monday, like, what would I actually want to go do? Well, for work, I'd like to be doing exactly what I'm doing today, like building cool products, working with awesome people, awesome clients, awesome team members, and then, coaching and teaching our process. It's like, oh, that's what we're doing right now. And if for like fun and a hobby, like I'd probably be flying. Like even if I had enough money to buy a private jet, I would still want to go learn how to fly my own plane. Like there's just something really cool about it. So it's not for everybody, but it is exciting for me. So I was like, well, that stuff sometimes is a lot closer than you think. So like I don't want to wait till I'm like in my 50s to go then start doing living the dream, if that makes sense. So that's a whole nother talk. But the point is, I went and I was like, cool, I'm going to go be a pilot. So started out like, this is great. There's a lot to learn. I did a first discovery flight and I kind of got like, okay, this is the really fun thing. It's really fun. It gets a little hard, but like I need to kind of navigate like how I'm learning this. And then I started to do some of the book learning and stuff along the way. And for 2 or 3 years, I'll say for the first 3 or 4 years of doing this, I kind of just went in these cycles of like getting kind of good, and then I would leave it for like a few months and I would come back and try to like build up that skill again. And then I was kind of like enjoying the fun parts of it, but not actually doing the real work. I wasn't actually going deep enough into the learning to make forward progress. And so this year, I was like, I got to finish this by the end of the year because now it's going on like 4 years. And if you were trying to like become a private pilot from not having any knowledge to like, passing your check ride, you could technically do that in 30 days. There's people that do it in a couple months. It's not 4 years. It's definitely not like an entire, uh, you know, 4 year degree. This is something you can do in a couple months. I've just extended it so long. And of course, I'm doing it as a hobby, so I justify not doing it at certain times. So anyway, this is where we are. So this year, I decided I'm gonna go deep, gonna figure this stuff out. And so when you get into this, there's this like really fun book called The FAR Aim, and it's this massive textbook with like tiny little print of all the FAA regulations and basically how to fly a plane and like best practices and all this stuff. You basically have to learn a lot of these different things. Um, in addition to that, I like bought these note cards. I have 350 note cards here that I'm like aggressively trying to memorize in the next 2 weeks. And so all that to say, like I went deep, and I would want to be able to like pick up any note card and answer a question. They have this thing when you become a pilot, you don't just take a multiple choice test and then they hand over like your license. That would be terrifying if you were flying with other people because it has to be regulated. The FAA and people there have delegate have to basically say, "Hey, you're approved, and we trust you." And now the public can fly with you, and we say that you're a safe pilot. So I love that idea of like in the age of like hacking and finding AI to like do different things. Like this was a very concrete thing. You either are a pilot or you're not. Like you either get the license or you didn't. And so it's very black and white. And there's no hacks. There is no scheming. There's no hacks. There's none. You just got to either go deep and learn the thing, or you didn't pass it at all. So I was like, I decided I'm just going to go deep and actually figure this out. So I wanted to show you this little graph that I found that I thought was pretty helpful. This is pretty true, and you can apply this to pretty much any thing. So you got experience and time. So as time goes on, like you're like, yay, this looks like fun. Like, and then you're like, oh, this is kind of hard. And then you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep going. And you're like, cool, I think I got it. Or no, I definitely didn't. Okay, I don't know anything. And then it kind of creeps up all the way to like, okay, I think I've actually arrived at something that's like, as time goes on, I've actually hit that experience. And this year, we did this right with our product, management. So we were doing Shape Up. We all read the book. We're like, this is pretty good. I was like showing people, teaching our team. I was teaching clients. I was, basically like, hey, we've got it, and we're coaching people on it. We're so good at this. And then we had Ryan Singer come in for a few sessions with us, and he was like, we're going to do a 3-hour session. So I was like, okay, that's intense. So like immediately, in our mind, we're like, oh, let's like sketch something out in 30 minutes. Let's do something in 45 minutes. And so he was like, let's go and do this one tiny piece and spend 3 hours on it. And so immediately our whole paradigm kind of shifted as far as like how did like we actually have to go very deep, and we got very um like meaningful movement. But what we would have done maybe in an hour, he was taking maybe multiple 3-hour sessions to go through. And we're like, wow, there's like a different way of doing this that is slowing down, actually going really 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 deep into this one product feature. And that's when we kind of realized like, oh, we thought we were like an 8 or 9 out of 10. What we didn't realize is the scale was from 0 to 100. So we actually were like 8 or 9% there. We weren't like 80, 90% there. We were off by like a huge multiple. And so as we go deep in these subjects, there it's also kind of fun because the process actually gets interesting and fun when you kind of learn that craft and you get a little bit curious about it. And so, same thing, like as I've gone through the pilot stuff, like I'm actually going deep now, and I'm actually learning a lot more about weather patterns and regulations and how like the mechanics of work. And you go deep enough, and it's not just kind of memorizing like here's the definition of this thing. It's like, I wonder how a carburetor works, and going on YouTube and watching like a 45-minute video to debrief, like diagram, like how does a carburetor work, and this can be applied for everything. Like if you get curious, let's say you're taking on a new technology. We're kind of delving into this world of RAG, agents for some AI things. And so like I've been going deep on these deep dives, like for learning what this is, how does it work, what are the mechanics. It's not enough to just like prompt AI to go build the thing and then like wonder why it doesn't work, right? It's going deep and you actually understanding it, because once you understand it, you can then instruct the AI to go and be extremely powerful with that. So it's basically getting away from the kind of surface level area, because we can all be sort of good at a lot of things today, and with AI, it kind of make up a lot of the difference. But if you go deep and you learn these different processes, you actually learn how to think about the problem differently. And especially if you're doing a feature or a bug, you're really learning from a client, like what really is the problem that's happening here. We're going way deep. It's not just that you need a button here and you want this like this project requirements doc built. Kind of going a few layers deeper, as we call founder therapy, and kind of understanding what does this person, what does this customer need, what are they trying to actually accomplish, what is the outcome they're looking for, and then how do we get there as fast as we can with this most simple and most elegant solution possible. Because typically, as you learn and you actually understand this, it's being able to turn around and actually explain it to someone else that's really means you understand it. So having to teach someone this thing, so that's why we're doing training here. We're having different people jump on and train as well. And I think that when you can kind of explain it to someone else, you really do have mastery of it. And so there's a difference. There's two tests that happen when you're doing your pilot's license. There's this knowledge test, which is you go into a testing room, you've got 2 or 3 hours, and you answer 100 questions. It's all multiple choice, and you just get a grade back. So I studied a bunch, memorized everything, and that's very much like this kind of rote memorization technique where you know the definition, you plug in the response, and you just see if you got it true or false. I mean, you got it correct. When you do the final check ride, you do this thing called an oral exam. So you sit down with this instructor, and for 2 or 3 hours, they just interview you, and you can it's just it you can use a book and you can reference material if you need to, but you need to really actually understand this. It's not just giving back a definition, it's going deep. And they'll kind of, in a true interview fashion, if you kind of pull at one thread and kind of if something seems shaky, they'll just keep going deeper down until see how deep you can go to understand how this thing actually works. And a lot of the times, like if you've heard of Elon Musk will talk about going back to first principles. If you can understand sort of the first principles of something, and here's why, a wing creates lift and it actually keeps you in the air. If you kind of understand how this Bernoulli's effect works, for example, you kind of get down to these sort of basic principles, then everything else you can kind of build that on top of that foundation. And we did this a lot with the product side. Like once we kind of learned these tools, we knew how to do framing and we knew how breadboarding worked, and we went really deep on the process as a team, and we weren't afraid to spend a lot of time to what maybe at the beginning seems like small progress, right? And so taking that time to invest in ourselves, to go deep and to learn this, these are the skills that that is going to make you extremely competitive in today's market, because everybody has access to AI. But I guarantee you, everybody's willing to just go surface level, and you go deep on something, it puts you in a totally different, puts you like leaps and bounds like ahead of everybody else, because you both have access to the same AI tools. But if you have that knowledge and that the years of experience, and you are actually a senior developer, and you've led other developers and you've reviewed other work, you can go so much further to leverage AI than if someone's just kind of vibe, like a founder is vibe coding an app, right? So Yeah, that's kind of the main thing. I just want to skim through here, see if I had any other things I wanted to share. But um, yeah, just basically don't be afraid. I was calling this human deep learning, and we talk about deep work. So I think these sessions are going to happen inside of deep work, is where you get the deep learning. It's not a scrolling on your phone, seeing a reel about some new tech stack thing, or whatever, and then that's how you learn something. That is surface level, of course. Like it's watching the 45-minute deep dive, it's watching the 3 hour deep dive video on this. I remember when we first got into AI and we first got into how to leverage it in our business. Sahil from Gumroad had put out some 3 and 4 hour live streamed videos where he just went like piece by piece and walked through like how they did their actual work. And most people are not going to invest 3 or 4 hours in that. And I did. I took time. I watched their whole thing, and I learned how they were actually doing it in their company. So don't be afraid of some deep work sessions, spending some time on this stuff. If you are going into a new topic, a new tech stack, like take the time, like figure out how it actually works, figure out how people are leveraging it. What's the pros, cons of it? Like become an expert in that thing. Like I said, we're diving into the world of like RAG AI solutions, and that's something I'm going deep in. And I'm also using AI to teach me things. So that's also very helpful. Is um, having it like ask dumb questions. You can ask it dumb questions. You may not ask in a comment somewhere. You may not ask it to a colleague, but you can ask AI some pretty dumb questions. Like um, if you're a fan of The Office, it's Michael Scott who's like trying to figure out what a surplus is, and either like, "Hey, explain it to me like I'm 7," and the accountant explains it, and he's like, "I don't understand. Explain it to me like I'm 5." And that same thing is like you just have it dumb it down for you until you like, okay, I get it now. Like, I understand the core things. And a lot of the times, like when you're going into a new topic that you're not familiar with, it is just learning the language. That is the main thing. Like one of the concepts uh, I learned was like when you're learning like a if you can just learn the definitions and the language and the vocabulary of that topic, it all of a sudden kind of unlocks everything. So just push through. It sounds all like jargon. It sounds very confusing at first, but when you kind of go push past and you go deep, you are going to kind of start to learn things at a new level. So um, yeah, I would say don't be afraid of going deep. You know, uh, give your time if you are planning out a new uh, if you're planning out like a new feature or some new tech, a new build of something, and you don't have mastery of that topic, that's something that's part of the context of this. It's not necessarily a problem, but it's something that's worth mentioning. And don't assume that like, oh, I'm just going to kind of fake it and I'll figure it out. I don't want to be like found out or embarrassed that I don't understand this thing. Like if you're taking on a 4 week 4 week project on something and you don't understand how a certain technology works, like let's build a week or two in there to become like an expert in that thing, or at least get a substantial amount of information into it. Because that is part of like the learning process. Like someone has to go and dig in and figure this out on behalf of the client or whoever's funding the feature. And so I just want to make sure that we don't. Um, One, we have like an honest representation of ourselves. As far as if I was like sort of skimming the flight textbooks, if I was sort of going that and I could kind of fly, and I was like, hey guys, like who on the team wants to go for a flight with me? It's like I don't exactly have my license, but like I get the gist, right? Like it's gonna be fine. Um, it's all good when you're like working at a project. Like, I don't know if I'd like get in a plane with you and, be thousands of feet in the air. So it's one of those things where just being honest, being kind of real, you know, honest look at like where we are, what do I actually understand? And I've always um, taken the viewpoint that we are all learning. Like no one's actually landing at mastery of like building software. That's just because as soon as you hit it, it's just like another level. There's just always going to be another level. Even in running a business, you're like, cool, I'm gonna build my business and I make 6 figures in a year. I'm crushing it. Okay, now I'm gonna try to make $1 million in a year. And as soon as you do that, immediately it's like, let's try to do five. And if you're like, do five, then you're like, let's do 10. 10, let's do 50, 100, and just like it never ends, right? So there's no one like who's mastering business. There's no one who's like mastering building apps. There's no one who's like even mastering flying a plane. Every single time you fly, you're learning something. Like it's just being in this mindset of always improving, always like refining and going deep. And the sooner you kind of just deal like with all overcome all that like resistance and just decide, okay, I'm gonna go deep and start just diving into the 3 hour videos and watching the lecture and actually doing it and prototyping and all that yourself. That's when you kind of learn. It kind of fast tracks you on that path of actually getting substantial knowledge in there, because a lot of times like we can just keep avoiding it, and we're like, I'll just kind of learn enough. And I kind of was like, just enough to get by. And I had this mindset for years. And it works in school, whole nother topic, but like, this is why school is a horrible idea in general, especially college. I wouldn't recommend it. But and I don't think our girls will probably go to school. I mean, to a college, because this is something that's so easy to just remember and regurgitate knowledge and not actually have deep understanding or learning sort of the life skills that you need. And so I was able to skim through school that way. And that's what's really fun about learning how to fly is you can't have any hacks. Like you can't hack this. There's no shortcuts. There's no scheming. There's no like workarounds. And AI can only get you that far. Like I have AI, I'm using it to help me like quiz and stuff, but it's pretty dumb. Like you'll quickly realize that it's knowledge. And once I'm now like able to correct ChatGPT on like some of the regulations, now I'm like, I think I'm starting to understand this. And I'll like question certain requirements. So that's kind of maybe how like what going deep actually means. So um, that's what I encourage you. Don't be afraid to jump in. Again, kind of look at. You could probably plot this out, this little graph, on a lot of different topics, and of course, the whole thing is a fun journey. I'll say, but uh, most people are kind of stuck in this level, and they're kind of stuck in this sort of 50, 60% experience. And this is where like sort of vibe coding lives in this world, is people like jump on Replit, they jump on Lovable, they throw a couple prompts in and like, hey, I just built an app in a weekend. And there's some value to it, like amazing that we can do that today. um, but actually building software and learning how to build a product that people will pay for and use, and how do you get them to come back and engage in the app, and how do it actually solve your users problems, and how do you market it, how do you sell it, how do you price it, like that's actually what's involved in sort of building an app or building a product in 2025. And yes, AI can help you with all those things, but it is kind of this extra knowledge of going kind of deep on these topics, and of course just doing it and kind of learning on the job. So hope that's helpful. I was maybe a bit of a rambling, but I wanted to share this. It's very real this week because I'm in book learning, studying, learning a lot to try to get this check ride done behind me. So awesome.